a 10-year-old has autism. We found out when he was about 3 years old. But what we also found out over time is that just like I have a 12-year-old and I have a 9-year-old, they love to grab my phone, tablets, and things like that. He wanted to do the same thing. So I figured, why not harness kids' desires to play games with learning at the same time, especially when it comes to communications, speech development, things like that. So why did I say the developers should pay attention to kids with autism? Because I have a son who would want you to. Essentially, my son would grow up in a world full of technology, so he needs people like us in this room to actually consider developing stuff that's aching to him. Say maybe right now you go to airplane counters and you see kiosks sometimes to purchase plane tickets or to check in. Well, you can all consider adults with autism or kids with autism if they're checking in. Not enough people are thinking about it quite yet. I also think techies, developers can help examine early education and say, well, where can we do something more creative? Because a lot of times the state and school districts are more bogged down than we are, and they're kind of set in the ways that they were, whereas in the tech environment, everything's always moving and always changing, and more flexible. So somebody from the tech environment or industry may be able to say, hey, you know what, why not try it this way? Whereas you may not get that from a school superintendent necessarily. Develop just like everybody else in here, and Google mainly Android Studio, which is good because autism is increasing not just in the U.S., but all across the world, and so is Android. Android is everywhere now. I think they just push Android phones, a lot of cheap ones and smartphones in India, and I think they're in the African continent over the next year. And oftentimes I deal with schools in South Africa. They're just going to open up a few schools for people with autism in Uganda, South Africa, Botswana, and places like that. Interestingly, I talk to teachers there who are making a pretty good salary, so they'll say, well, yeah, I'm glad you're doing this, but I have an iPhone or an iPad, but all of my students have Androids because there's a different level of what you can afford in that area. So the teachers in, say, South Africa can afford iPhones and stuff like that, but overwhelmingly, the majority of consumers and students have Android phones because that's what's in the market. But schools find themselves more and more worried about budget constraints. That's where Google comes in because it's free. Most of it's free to develop. The education budget needs us because the budget is really low. That's why educators need us. The budget is low for education, especially compared to Social Security, defense, and any other major programs. Parents and teachers, students, all more likely to have an Android device at home. The reason why that matters when it comes to kids with autism is because they have what you call individual education plans, and you want to reinforce it at home. So if the teacher's working on a certain tablet, certain games, you want to be able to download the same exact game on the same device at home. So you're basically reinforcing what the teacher already taught. You're reinforcing that individual education plan. A lot of times what they do is they set speech goals, shapes goals, color goals, and things of that nature. And you'll see in a minute how our website is set up to build apps around the individual education plan. Obviously, here's some tips for when you start to, if you decide to develop for kids with special needs. Autistic kids really need to be engaged in the activity. You really have to, just like the rest of us, get addicted to it or get really into it. If you can harness a learning game where they're really into it, then that'll be superb. Images and colors are key. Images and colors, sounds, anything that sparks the sensory, because they can be hypersensitive, or the sensory can be too low. It can be off one way or the other. So anything that sparks the sensory can be very good. If they're hypersensitive, you can use that to create a hyper-learning experience. You see what I did there? Change the color, everybody.
Do you do stuff with haptic feedback, the vibration stuff?
Yes, yes. Oftentimes, yeah, I'll mention that actually.
Because Immersion has a really good library that lets you do consistent vibration across devices.
You absolutely need that. So, based on what we were saying, my son, this one would mean more to him. Obviously, for him, this means more than this. That's really worrying. So he's just, what are all those words? But he can see, oh, okay, that's a place where I use the bathroom. So he's more visual. Whereas oftentimes, we use a lot of words, we talk a lot, we're used to it because we communicate in that way. He communicates mostly visually. So sometimes he'll say more, but he'll also do the sign language to say more. And he expects us to pick up on it and know that, which is good. not all autistic kids, especially kids, are the same. The sensory levels and the levels of autism are way different. So there are some that are more verbal, more into words. This is just kind of some general information based on what I observed and what I pay attention to when I'm developing. Here's some of the stuff that we developed is space shapes. Nothing complicated about that. Ultimately, you have shapes moving around in space and some rocks. You tell them to touch the red circle. Now he knows, oh, that circle is red. So he's learned the color and he's learned the shape. And of course, the consequences is if you touch the rock, it says no, boom, you lost, you shouldn't touch the rock. See, what you're doing is kind of discrete trial training, getting them to distinguish between shapes and rocks slowly over time through the game. Henry Please is more of an assistive communication. What I did was I wanted my son to be able to tell me, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, and then as he learned the names of the food, tell me I want pizza, I want apples, I want candy. These are fun stuff because the kids, he's like, I said, rotten. So that's kind of what we use. We also made it so he could record himself saying that. So he could basically peer model himself. Now he hears himself saying, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty. So he'll continue to do it. And just to give you an example of this game, I actually have it. We created, I added something towards the end, a game called Autistic, where he can take a picture of what I like. So say, like, in your refrigerator you have candy, he takes a picture of the candy, and the picture will pop up here. Or even more so, what I did was I'll let a kid take a picture of himself, and I just did you, and now he's put himself in the game. So, and all he does is catch that, he hits it, it tells him, oh, he's in the own game. It tells him, good job, you did it or whatnot. So you take a picture of pizza, take a picture of things that he likes. So he starts to basically be able to tell you, this is what I like. Because a lot of times with children with autism, it's the communication that causes the tantrums and the frustration. Is that I need something. Now I won't have a tantrum when I need something because I can just flat out tell you, I need something. I want this, I want that. But imagine if you were a kid and you're like, really want something and you need it, and no one knows what you're saying, no one is trying to hear it at all. That can be frustrating. So that's why we created an app to kind of do the basics of communication, slowly but surely. Because the big deal is communication. We do have an open source project. I'm trying to do foreign languages. Autistic kids learn Spanish. I started Portuguese. I lived in Portugal for 2 years, so I speak a little bit of Portuguese. So that's the reason why I started. If you go to the website, the code is all there. Download it from the S3 bucket. It's pretty simple, basic right now. There's almost nothing on it right now. Here's the website, littlearnerdaycare.com. We use exactly, this is perfect. The show is set up. Parents can go to the Google Play Store and download each app individually for free, or for 99 cents on them, or $1.99, pretty cheap. Or they can sign up for $1.99 a month, and they get any app they can create for the rest of the year, all unlimited. So the way we have it set up is based on an individual education plan. In those plans, teachers say, our goal is for Michael to be able to identify shapes accurately 90% of the time. So that's the way we set it up. We separate into categories: social and communications goals, math and shapes goals, colors, and motor skills goals. Motor skills is the funnest one because it's just get to me random games. You don't have to be so specific like shapes and colors. From the phone, one click will download if the parent or teacher or organization is a member, and you see some stuff we have here. All this stuff is fun stuff. Fraud. We make a fraud joke. Catch lightning. Lightning's moving around. Catch it. What we're doing is find motor skills. Can you pinpoint exactly, or she pinpoint exactly where it is? Touch it. Hungry penguin is another one. It's find motor skills. You have to drag a penguin to catch a seal. Now you not only just added the pointing, you've also added the dragging. That eventually leads to being able to use pen, started off with games so that they can use pen and pencil just like we do. Color popper, you just get the popper by color. So you go popper green balloon. I was doing it at my house with real balloons, and guys go crazy. So I said it's probably a better way to do it. But essentially, what you'll see is that kids just can learn with fun. You know, it doesn't have to be so serious. And if we all go back, we'll remember that when we first started learning, the teachers used games. But that gets lost somewhere around like 4th or 5th grade, and all of a sudden it becomes so serious. But remember how much stuff you learned in kindergarten? Because it was a song, or because it was a game? Oftentimes we let that go. I think we need to bring that back. You'll see our open source project, which is basically an app, Portuguese type of app. It's very simple. We would like to add a whole bunch more to it. Right now, it's just like that. Still working on it. Hit a button and it says, hola, hola, means hello. Bom dia means good morning. What we will eventually probably do is replace these buttons with pictures and, maybe wave and things of that nature to probably add some music. But the code is on the site. You just download it. We have it in the S3 bucket. Play around with it. Add pictures, add an activity, games, do whatever. Certainly, children with autism can use all of the developers' help in this room, especially when it comes to Android, because so many people have versus iOS. So like iOS is cool, but the truth is, 80-some-odd% of people have Android phones. Cheaper, easier to move around. And the schools are getting more money too. Appreciate you guys listening to me, and I hope you guys are encouraged to consider kids with autism when you start to go back out and do tech. Consider kids like myself.